My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas, but right now I am currently in Rockwall, Texas. And I am here for one specific reason, and that's because Rockwall, Texas has signed this proclamation. Mayor Kevin Fowler has signed a proclamation for Parental Alienation Awareness Day, and I want to thank the mayor. I've met him, I'm sure, but I have not really talked with him, so I don't know him personally, but I want to thank the mayor for actually signing this proclamation. The reason I'm standing in front of this courthouse right now is because behind me is where the family court judges and family court attorneys, or anti-family court judges and anti-family law attorneys practice and are often the people that cause parental alienation. And I will talk a little bit about that in just a few moments here. But with regard to the proclamation that Mayor Kevin Fowler has signed, it simply says this: whereas parental alienation deprives children of their right to love and be loved by both parents and by their whole family, and whereas parental alienation can be very emotionally and mentally damaging to a child, and whereas behavior such as speaking negatively about a parent to or in front of a child can destroy the bond between a loving parent and a child, and whereas awareness of this issue creates education and understanding to better the lives of children in our community, whereas the month of April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, and parental alienation is considered to be a form of child psychological abuse. Now therefore, I, Kevin Fowler, Mayor of the City of Rockwall, do hereby proclaim April the 25th, 2022 as Parental Alienation Awareness Day in the City of Rockwall, and call upon citizens to join others in blowing, quote, bubbles of love to symbolize that as bubbles flow freely, so should the natural love that a child has for both parents and both sides of their family. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and official seal on this 4th day of April, 2022, Kevin Fowler, Mayor. And once again, Mayor Kevin Fowler, I want to thank you for signing this proclamation. It is something that needs to be done through every city in the state of Texas. But more than just signing proclamations, we actually need to address the issue of parental alienation in itself. Parental alienation goes by different forms. Some people call it family bond destruction. Some people can call it poisoning a child against a parent by a parent or by a grandparent or something like that. There's many different things that parental alienation is known by, but basically what it does, it causes a disruption, it causes a breakage, it causes the damage between a parent-child relationship. Some people say, well, maybe the parental alienation was deserved. And there's confusion between that. Parental alienation and parental estrangement are two different things. One tends to be more fault-based. Parental alienation is when one parent poisons a child, or a grandparent poisons a child, or an anti-family law attorney poisons a child, or an anti-family court judge poisons a child to make that child want to despise and not have a relationship with his or her natural mother and father. Going through this proclamation, it says two things. Number one, parental alienation deprives children of their right to love and be loved by both parents. And this is something that we don't talk about in our family courts. Children have rights. Oh, we talk about parental rights, we talk about this, and I'm not denying those. But children should have rights, and children by nature should be protected by our society, should be protected by parents. Children should have the right to love both parents freely and to be loved by both parents freely. And not just by the parents, but by the entire side of the family, by grandparents, by uncles and by aunts. What actually happens many times in the case of divorce or something like that, when one person is demonized, the entire family gets cut off. A child loses a relationship or has that relationship with an entire side of the family damaged because of parental alienation or family bond obstruction or whatever other term it is that you want to call it. But the second point was this, that parental alienation can be emotionally and mentally damaging to a child. There are people that speak about the damage that takes place to children when one parent is basically removed from a child's life. Often it's done by judges. Often it's done by anti-family judges who claim to be acting in the best interest of the child, but actually are acting in the worst interest of the child. Often it's done by anti-family attorneys who want to defend their client. Doesn't make a difference what type of damage they bring to their children. This is evil and it's perverse, but they damage children. They damage them mentally. They damage them emotionally. Oftentimes, the damage lasts for years. Sometimes it lasts for a lifetime. This is a perverse evil that we need to address. And our family courts and our anti-family court system, the whole industry, is one of the biggest purveyors of abuse, of this child abuse in our state and throughout the country. Finally, it also says that such behaviors, such as speaking negatively about a parent to or in front of, can destroy the bond between a loving parent and a child. There are some parents that don't want to be involved in their children's life. I understand that, but there are many loving parents that are being kicked out, sometimes permanently, by an abusive anti-family court system, anti-family law judge, anti-family laws that are in place, anti-family attorneys. This is abuse. When a loving parent is kicked out of a child's life or is being told in the state of Texas, you can have a relationship with your child on this day and on the weekends, but other than that, the child stays with the custodial parent. This is abuse, and the state is actually causing this abuse. We have developed a whole system, the family court system, that supports this abuse. Now, I talk about the family court system because right here, once again, I've been inside of these courtrooms. I've been inside the courtroom with Judge Brett Hall of the 382nd District Court. I've watched the abuse that he has been a part of. I've been in the court and I've watched David Rakow. I've watched David Rakow contribute to and be the direct factor, I believe, at least in some instances, to child abuse and parental alienation. I've watched this personally. This is not hearsay. I've gone into these courts and I've seen it. There's also a district attorney who is the district attorney of the year for the state of Texas, Kendra Culpepper. One of her jobs is to enforce 2503, which is the interference of child custody. I have a friend right now who's here who's been asking the district attorney to actually enforce that. Kendra Culpepper has failed in her duty to this. A couple of years ago, I met Kendra Culpepper, and I knew her from the past, but I met her at an event down here at Rockwall Harbor. I think it was the Hilton Hotel. There's some type of hotel down here. Kendra was there, and I asked if I could interview her, and her question was, are you going to be nice to me? Of course I will be nice to you. The question that I have for Kendra Culpepper is, why aren't you doing your job? People come to you with criminal complaints. 2503 is a crime against the family. They come to the district attorney, and the district attorney seldom prosecutes it. Well, Kendra told me that she had a case that she was prosecuting, but that was it. I know of numerous cases within the city of Rockwall, within the county of Rockwall, that Kendra Culpepper has completely whiffed on, and she is the attorney of the year for the district attorney of the year for the state of Texas. If the district attorney of the year for the state of Texas is failing in her responsibilities, utterly failing in her duty to enforce 2503 and to prosecute 2503, what is happening in the rest of Texas? This is a question that we have to ask. And when you have interference with child custody, you also help to create the situation that leads to parental alienation, that leads to removing a loving parent from a child's life, that leads to having a parent begging, having to spend thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in an abusive system, an abusive anti-family system, in front of abusive anti-family attorneys, in front of an abusive anti-family judge such as Brett Hall and David Rakow, to list two, for example, fighting to see their kids. Whose kids are they? They belong to both parents. And for the state to come in and say, well, we're going to allow you to get a no-fault divorce. No fault is alleged by anybody. No-fault divorce. Sometimes it's forced divorce. But after the no-fault divorce, the state is going to find fault with a parent and remove a parent from a child's life so that the state can collect child support. The state of Texas is financially profiting from parental alienation, the conditions that create parental alienation, the conditions that actually destroy our children, that damage them mentally and emotionally. So on Parental Alienation Awareness Day, once again, I want to thank Rockwall Mayor Kevin Fowler. Rockwall Mayor Kevin Fowler for signing the proclamation to acknowledge that parental alienation is a form of child abuse. Perhaps the mayor could speak to these family court judges down here and ask them why they are contributing to parental alienation. In fact, let me take this one step further. Looking at the family court system, I believe that these courts ought to be monitored. I believe we ought to have video and audio in every single family court hearing. These people are destroying families. They are destroying a parent. They are deprecating them. They are damaging our children. We need to be able to see this, and we need to be able to hold both these family court, anti-family court attorneys and anti-family court judges. We need to be able to hold them criminally liable for the abuse that they are doing. In any other situation, it would be considered child abuse. But somehow, when we go into this sacred hall, this sacred courtroom, this sacred courthouse, into the sacred courtroom, where the priestly craft is practiced by the anti-family attorneys and the anti-family judges, and the whole thing is a sham, and they abuse our children and they damage them, somehow they have immunity. We can't talk about them. We can't touch them. We can't videotape them. We can't audio tape them. They want all of this stuff done in secret. That right there is the first clue that abuse is taking place in these places, inside these family court houses, these family court rooms right here. We need to be able to openly discuss this issue about the abuse that takes place in these family courts. The reason I'm in front of this courthouse right now is because I think this is the number one place, the number one contributor to parental alienation and the psychological child abuse of our children. Number two is going to be CPS, and I will be heading down there shortly. I will go down there and do a video in front of them as well. But right now, as far as the family courts are concerned, I have watched so many cases that have taken place. We need to have open courts. These judges want to keep their courts closed, and they say we need to protect the privacy of the children. What they're doing is they're lying. They do not want their own evil activities to be exposed. And I know this, again, because I've seen it personally. I've witnessed it personally. I've been down here and I've seen it, and I'm not the only one. There are many other people. I've read court transcripts. The abuse that takes place is an abuse that, if it happened again in the regular society, we would be calling for criminal investigations. I believe that these judges need to be criminally investigated for incompetence, for acting outside their jurisdiction, and for the abuse that they allowed to take place. And I could go into great detail both about Judge Brett Hall and about Judge David Rakow. I've been in there several different times. Injustice of the Peace, Jack James. And by the way, I want to make sure that he gets thrown into this bunch too. Injustice of the Peace, Jack James. The great injustice of the peace, Jack James. He would never allow perjury to take place in his court, as he's allowing it to take place in his court. Perjury is also rampant in family courts. But once again, for Kevin Fowler, I want to say thank you so much. If you are a legislator in this area, if you are a representative like Justin Holland, if you're a senator like the great Senator Bob Hall, I would love to ask you, please come down and monitor these courts. Send some of your staff down here. Let them see what is going on. Be aware of what's happening in your courts. This abuse is taking place in these courts, and we need to be able to talk about it. And if you're a judge, maybe you make a mistake, but integrity means that you actually admit to making a mistake. And one of the things I would love to see these judges do is cancel all hearings at least once a quarter and allow all these people that they have victimized to come into their courtroom and complain, and let them know what the results of their bad decisions have been. And I also think too that ought to be broadcast so that it's available to the public. We must clean up these courts. Courts here, especially the anti-family courts, are courts of abuse, child abuse. Courts that actually create the circumstances and facilitate and empower parental alienation. Courts that damage our children psychologically and mentally. These judges, these anti-family court attorneys, they're committing criminal actions, abusive actions. We need to be able to hold them accountable. So once again, Mayor Fowler, I would even love to see you down here. Mayor Fowler, if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd love to talk with you. Thank you once again so much for signing this proclamation. Today is Parental Alienation Awareness Day, April 25th, 2022. Thank you very much.